everyone, and welcome back to the Bone Club. Unfortunately, this week, Stephanie and Jenna are both ill, but I am with you today. And today we have Erin Waxenbaum from Northwestern University, who is also president of the American Board of Forensic Anthropology. She's going to be talking with us today about the ABFA and certification. So
Thank you so much. Ashley, thank you so much for having me. Sorry your comrades are ill, but hopefully they'll recover quickly.
I'm hoping so. It's just something that's just going around in the summer. It's the summer bug this week. Uh,
Definitely.
but just because I know you're rather busy, but this week you're enjoying some very much needed relaxation time. Um,
Yeah.
we ask this of everybody who comes on here, but just what got you interested in forensic anthropology?
It's a great question. As I tell a lot of my students and advisees, I'm a very proud pre-med dropout. In undergrad, I guess in high school, I was incredibly interested in science and anatomy in particular. And so, of course, like a good, strong type A student, you want to be pre-med. I think that was just the only option that I saw as available with an interest in science and anatomy. I also just thought as a type A student and person, that's what you should want to do, quote unquote, to get a good job, a good degree was to go into medicine. And very quickly in my undergrad degree, I appreciated that most of my peers just wanted it more than I did. They were willing to go through those weed out, Orgo and Gen Chem and all of those terrible, terrible classes. They were willing to stick it out, and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't performing as well as I had wanted to. And on a weird sort of off the cuff semester as electives, I took from the anthropology department an intro to cultural anthropology class and at the same time a human osteology class. And both of those classes were amazing to me. They completely opened my eyes to a new way to look at science and people in a way that I had never perceived possible before. Cultural anthropology was amazing, but especially with osteology, I realized that you could like science and anatomy and not be a medical doctor. That was never a thought that had ever occurred to me before. I did not know that was an option. And so that was really an exciting change for me. And I immediately dropped my bio neuroscience double major pre-med track, whatever, and put all my eggs in the anthropology basket.
You'd rather draw femurs than hexagons in orgochemistry.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, there's some people that love organic chemistry, but I am not one of those people.
I've never met any of those people.
They exist. They exist. I see them at Northwestern all the time. They're a unusual crop, but they exist in the world.
I I have yet to meet those folks, and I've worked with some of the med students at the University of Toronto, and just I've they always look frazzled.
Well, they gotta be out there, right? People have to become organic chemists and or teach organic chemistry to future blossoming pre-med students. So they exist.
Well, as I mentioned in the intro, you're president of the American Board of Forensic Anthropology. So, what is the ABFA? What is their function? What do they do?
Absolutely. So the American Board of Forensic Anthropology, the ABFA, is a nonprofit organization. It began in 1977 with the intent to improve the practice and advance the science overall of forensic anthropology. The purpose of the ABFA is to grant certificates of qualification or board certification to practitioners who meet, obviously, first application requirements and also demonstrate competence in forensic anthropology by passing an examination.
And why is that certification important?
Um, I think certification is important for a lot of reasons. If we think about maybe some of your listeners that are in an undergraduate or a master's or a PhD program, every academic program out there is different. So whether you're working toward a BA or an MA or a PhD in anthropology, when you have that degree conferred, just saying you have a degree in anthropology doesn't tell you a lot about what classes you took or what you learned or honestly, how well you did in those classes, how much you really took in. So the idea of certification is to kind of level the playing field in terms of an evaluation of one's competency, their training, and obviously, board certification isn't solely for anthropology. Obviously, the whole range of medical, clinical fields have board certification. There's board certification for accountants in a CPA. Lawyers have a certification examination with the bar exam. So certification as a process just tells you a little bit about that individual's background, their training, their experience, whether they've met, certain criteria. And it also demonstrates that they've been vetted by practitioners in their own field, that they've kind of met the field standards of what someone should know, how they should be able to practice, given sort of colleagues or peers in that field.
Uh, you mentioned some of those organizations or some of those different fields. Does the ABFA actually collaborate with some of those similar organizations, like with the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators, the ABFO, the Board of Toxicologists? Do you work with those organizations as well to, I guess, not necessarily mirror, but sort of make sure that everything is the standards are sort of similar across, and that everything is there's a similarity between them?
Absolutely. We definitely lean on peer institutions, just to get perspective sometimes, but also, especially within the fields of forensics, it's really nice to learn from one another and to be able to teach one another what we do. We don't want to step on toes, but we want to make sure that practitioners, like, say, forensic odontologists, have an appreciation for how anthropologists are trained in terms of teeth. We want to work with those guys, but we don't want to, like I said, cross each other too far or step on each other's toes. Same with medical legal death investigators. AFS, I know you've talked about AFS a lot on the program before, is a good sort of umbrella scenario to bring all sorts of different forensic specialists together. And that, at a lot of those conferences, a lot of times people don't just stay, in the anthropology papers. People often do like to cross, fields and learn from even the general section, jurisprudence, digital examiners. I mean, there's so much we can learn from our forensic colleagues. So it's really, I think, important to cross those field lines a bit and learn from, especially within the forensic umbrella, others within our fields.
I know it's probably rare, but do you have any of the diplomates or those that are certified in multiple organizations? I know, like within medicine, the fields of medicine, you may have people that are certified in different areas. Do you see that sometimes within those forensic science boards?
Absolutely. I think the one that I just see, qualitatively most commonly is medical legal death investigation. That's oftentimes how a lot of people can get full-time employment in a medical examiner or coroner's office, is also having that board certification in medical legal death investigation with anthropology that sort of serves to have a full-time employment in a medical legal office setting. So very common.
Um, when we see this certification, though, it seems to be important in death investigation. Is it equally important in academia and higher education, or is its importance really just in death investigation?
From my perspective, I would qualify to say that I do think that it's more important in medical legal death investigation than in academia. And even to be, board certified, you have to be able to upkeep your casework. You can't purely be, say, teaching in a university setting and be able to maintain your certification. You have to be actively involved in casework. And that's really important because it ensures that you are keeping up with new methods that are being rolled out, casework, maybe peer reviewing with others in your field. And so it's important to be both sort of academically minded, but also be a practitioner in forensic anthropology.
Um, what role does that certification play in death investigation? Does it have it has an importance, but is that importance sort of as a scenario? You have a case, you have a practitioner, you can say that this practitioner has reached a level that we say they are that they have the qualifications that we think need to be met. And when you have cases where practitioners are not certified, would you say that that could be a detriment in the criminal justice system?
The biggest scenario that I would say this would be relevant to or would come up, and this could happen obviously in any potentially forensic case, is if that case goes to trial and if the
Mhm.
forensic anthropologist that worked on that case is subpoenaed and called to testify in that case. When you're subpoenaed to testify, the first thing that you're asked about is you're vetted for your qualifications to be able to speak as an expert witness in that scenario. And they ask about your educational background, your training, and you are asked if that you have any specific additional qualifications or certifications that allow you to speak to, the specifics of this particular case as an expert witness. And so in that scenario, it is really important to be able to say that you are board certified because, as I mentioned before, it's just a demonstration to your qualifications, the competence that you have, and the skills that you're about to potentially speak to, and that you've been vetted in your particular field. So in that scenario, it is very important.
And given that importance, I know the ABFA is in the process of rolling out this multi-level certification. And what are the goals of the ABFA with that multi-level certification? And what are the differences when looking at that analyst and diplomate levels between the two?
Absolutely. So I can speak a lot on this subject. Please feel free to stop me. But this is a new multi-level certification that we're rolling out. In 2021, the diplomates voted to amend the bylaws of the ABFA to change the minimum educational requirements for certification to a master's degree. It previously was a PhD, and this allowed for the development of a tiered multi-level certification program. And so as of 2026, the ABFA will offer two certifications, analyst and diplomate, as you mentioned. And this will reflect the different levels of involvement in forensic anthropology casework across practitioners. It'll create a larger forensic anthropology workforce to serve the needs of the medical legal system. And it'll allow a demonstration to the medical legal community that analysts or diplomates have been vetted to certain competencies, and those competencies are directly listed out on the ABFA website. Overall, the ABFA hopes that multi-level certification will encourage more practitioners to seek certification. Previously, it being only at the PhD level did appear to be a barrier for those in terminal master's degree programs. This could also help normalize board certification for the discipline and encourage medical legal agencies to require potentially certification for employed or contracted forensic anthropologists. And as I mentioned, competencies were developed for each certification level. There was a new application process developed, new certification exams, new recertification procedures. A lot of changes have been going on over just a few short years. And the multi-level certification program is described as tiered because applicants now must pass the analyst exam before they can pursue the diplomate certification.
You had mentioned barriers, and there are some that would argue that with this multi-level certification, it can in and of itself pose yet another barrier to entry into the field, specifically as it relates to costs and fees. Um, and when you have uh, employers standardize that they want um, the certification, yet they're not willing to cover those costs and fees. Do you see that as a barrier in and of itself, and how does the ABFA look at getting around that barrier to make the field open as possible so that it is the competency that is the deciding factor rather than, say, cost and fees and the bureaucratic side of things.
Absolutely. That's a really great question. The entire goal of this multi-level certification switch was to make things inherently more open. It was an attempt to remove those barriers because I will tell you both in time and cost, traveling to the analyst exam is a lot cheaper than getting a PhD. So the intent, and obviously things can always be improved. And I, for one, am highly open to making changes and continuing to build upon the improvements that the organization is making currently. Um, and we have lots of ideas in the hopper for additional ways to remove even further barriers for getting people to that analyst exam. But we've just been having inherently so many changes. I mean, literally the whole organization's mission is certification, right? And it was previously in this one single direction with diplomate certification, and now we're completely turning it on its head with breaking down that certification into a multi-level. So I think progress is slow, but we're really excited with the changes that are happening right now, and I think they're going to continue to come to try to even, like I said, break down more barriers because the goal is to make a little bit less of an exclusive, sort of club. We don't want that impression. We really do want to open it up. We have a lot of changes to our website in terms of, posting our application materials, posting the rubrics that our applications are evaluated through, the competencies. Only in the last few years do we have the reading list available for analysts. The analyst reading list just went up within the past week or so.
Yep.
Um, and the diplomate one as sort of a demonstration of what examinees need to be able to, study and prepare themselves. Previously, it was just kind of like no forensic anthropology and everything that's ever happened, which is very difficult way to study. I found myself. So the reading list, we've just been making so many changes, and like I said, you will continue to see them. They're not going to stop just with multi-level certification. So I do think, obviously I'm biased, but I think that the barriers are being broken down actively and aggressively, and I believe they'll continue to do so over the coming years.
I'm glad to see it. I will make a confession to everybody that when I was a little itty bitty baby anthropologist all the way back in 2010, we were talking about that there was discussion of the multi-level stuff even then. And I had that even then is when I said, I want to get my PhD. I want to become a diplomate. I want to go through all this stuff. But I know this discussion has been going on now for this 15 years
Probably.
at least. So it's good to see it actually happening.
Well, and the thing is, and this does happen in any field, right? It's not exclusive to forensic anthropology,
No,
but anybody can call themselves a forensic anthropologist.
yeah,
Like I said, the idea of certification, that is a demonstration that you've had training, that you've had coursework, that you've passed an application process, an examination process that proves that you're really true to having that title. Many people across the world might label themselves forensic anthropologists that some of us might question to be an appropriate title. So the idea of certification just once again helps level that field, and it speaks to the medical legal modalities that we engage with and tells them a little bit something about, what that, potential employee or contractor has in terms of past experience and their ability to work effectively within their office setting.
yeah. I and I'll leave out the names because I don't want to get any trouble, but I know of a situation that took place in Canada where there was a set of remains found on native lands. And they called one of my friends who is she works with the agency in Ontario, and one of the faculty members I work with, who is an anthropologist but does nothing with forensics, Wondered why they didn't call her because, well, she works with that native population. Yeah, but you don't do anything. You probably couldn't even lay out the skeleton. So there's vastly different realms of expertise there.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would say too, like a lot of folks might feel like it's purely osteology, like having an understanding of anatomy and skeletal biology that makes one a forensic anthropologist. But I will
Mm-mm.
just quickly read through the categories of competencies.
Oh, yeah.
Anatomy, documentation, evidence handling, field recovery, medical legal
Law.
significance, taphonomy, postmortem interval, processing, MNI commingling, biological profile, statistics, pathology, personal ID, trauma, expert testimony, courtroom procedure, professional standards, lab operations, accreditation, and ethics are the main categories in our certification for both the analyst and diplomate. And
Mhm.
that goes well beyond, anatomy was one
Yeah.
of those many, many criteria. So just
Yeah.
having a human osteology class doesn't necessarily make you a forensic anthropologist.
No, no, it doesn't. And it takes a long time. I have found it does take a long time. And you learn every single day.
Absolutely. Even
You
as
you
a,
don't stop.
diplomate, as a practitioner, you
Yeah.
learn with every case. Absolutely.
Well, and I find within our field, what I think is rather unique is the field really can change on a dime, or theoretically can change on a dime next week as far as the legal side of medical legal,
Absolutely.
based on what a court decides tomorrow.
Yeah,
That can happen. It's happened in the past.
absolutely.
So we have to stay on top of that stuff.
Yep.
And then even after that, we've gone what? Well, I can't think of the exact number of years, long time with this Daubert standard. And now we're starting to get papers questioning whether we've even interpreted Daubert correctly.
Mhm.
So we have that going with us.
And that's all of that is definitely outside of, the general education of someone with an anthropology degree without that sort of forensic specialization that focuses on those aspects.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, and speaking of that, it's not just. I know the ABFA is here in America, first word American,
Mhm.
but Jenna, who unfortunately is not with us, she is in Canada. She still works in Canada, and I studied at U of T, trying to get out. Um, and we recognize that some countries don't actually have a certification process. Canada still works on a mentorship style system. Some other countries still do. Is that more of a difference in population size? Would you recommend a certification process, or is it just, each country has to be a little different? I know the United Kingdom does have a certification process. Is it just each country, hey, to each their own?
It's a good question. Um, firstly, I think a part of it is the recognition of the practice and importance of forensic anthropology to medical legal death investigation. Even within the United States, where obviously we have the ABFA, there are still many jurisdictions that, either don't have a contract or employ a forensic anthropologist, or they're just not familiar with what a forensic anthropologist does. Once again, from pathologist to coroner in a more rural county, they just might not have had the exposure of forensic anthropology, and that's a big part of what the ABFA strives to do, is to educate and inform, other, relatives, cousins in our forensic community to help them better understand the value that we can serve in their investigation. We've even developed over the most recent years some social media expertise to try to get the word out just of the kinds of cases that forensic anthropologists have helped solve the areas that forensic anthropologists work in, just sort of beefing up expansive understanding of our organization and our certification. But obviously, not everywhere in the world, like you mentioned, has certification. Um, but even at the same time, not everywhere in the world recognizes forensic anthropology as an academic discipline. Even anthropology itself is practiced and appreciated differently in different parts of the world. But as you mentioned, there is a British system with the Royal Anthropological Institute. There's FASC, the Forensic Anthropological Society of Europe, that has a certification process. But I do think it's growing because with all this beyond the TV show Bones, I think there's just developing a greater understanding through word of mouth, through organizations like ours that have helped others appreciate what forensic anthropologists can do not only for active casework, for mass disasters, which are unfortunately happening, we're seeing daily happening around the world, and the role of anthropologists is really growing in those scenarios. So I think it'll grow. I think it'll happen.
Does the ABFA work with those sister organizations? And I use the term sister loosely, like the Royal Anthropological Society, like FAC.
Not directly. We definitely lean on work with one another. I actually created the social media accounts that the ABFA has, and I worked with the individual that works on social media from FASE, excuse me, to sort of just learn from them in that. How do you get the word out there about your organization? What do you promote on your website? How does it sort of attract individuals to help sort of broaden that education? So in that sense, yes. But oftentimes we're working from, different data sources, different collections, different methodologies, definitely different legal systems and rules in that regard. So there's a little engagement, but not, I would say, on a daily basis.
Um, I know when it comes to university accreditation, there is there has been a push to broaden. And I know with medical accreditation, there's been a push to broaden. Has the ABFA seen a similar push to have competition of some kind in any way, or do you not see that in the future, in the near future,
Like between organizations?
between organizations? I mean, right now, the ABFA is really about the only anthropological certifying body, correct?
Yes, in the United
Is
States.
there in the United States? Do you see in the near future a second organization that might compete with the ABFA, or um, has the field itself sort of said, you know, we like what the ABFA is doing. We'll keep with them.
Well, I'll keep my ear to the ground, but I haven't heard any rumblings as of yet. No, nothing that I know of, for sure.
um, well, that's good.
For now, we'll see.
Um, as we've talked about before, most of our audience is made up of undergraduate students. What would you recommend to them if their ultimate goal is to be certified by the ABFA?
Well, I think if you are coming up from high school, undergrad, master's, PhD, what have you, I think the first and foremost, most important thing is to be a good anthropologist in all senses of the word, to have a strong four-field background. All areas of anthropology come into play in forensic anthropology. So we don't want to just sort of exclusively focus on forensics or even biological anthropology, but to have that archaeological background, field recovery experience, cultural and linguistic anthropology are important too in terms of interpretation of a scene and engagement with families. I would also say too to try to get as much hands-on experience as is humanly possible because it can be, I'm a little old for this, but a lot of people develop a love for forensic anthropology these days through media representations of forensic anthropology like Bones. I was already deep in it before Bones came out as a TV show. But obviously, media representations of any forensic science have very little to do with the real day-to-day practice. And you can't know how you'll feel being in the autopsy suite or being in the field or even being, in the stuffy Smithsonian attic of a museum working on your PhD research until you're put in those situations. So you have to know that you really want to do it before you're going to put your time and money and education in that direction. So do a field school, try to get, lab experience, look at all of those internship and field school opportunities over the summer or during the year, go abroad, really try to get some hands-on experience to know that this is what you want to do. And obviously, all those things are great to put on your CV, on your resume, and have for applications as well. But it really will facilitate for you knowing that you're going in the right direction. And I think very deeply, I'm a undergraduate student advisor, and I tell students all the time, when you truly have a passion and you've vetted that passion, you know that it's true, that comes through in application materials. People will know that you're really in it to win it, and that will get you more scholarships, grants, you know, positive application materials, all the good things that you want in this ridiculous academic trajectory that we put ourselves in.
Learn that excavating a pit is bad on your knees, bad on your back, and it's hot as heck. Or
Absolutely.
my experiences, I've always, because whenever I get called out, it's always been either middle of summer or middle of Canadian winter. There's never a middle. There's never in the nice, lovely fall, never in the nice spring. It's one or the other.
And it's important, and you got to know your own personal strengths too. I have
Yeah,
my master's is in archaeology, but I know for certain that I am much happier digging in a body bag than I am digging in the dirt.
yep,
And I sometimes have to dig in the dirt, and I'll do it if I have to, but I'd much rather dig in a body bag.
yep.
Just my personal preference.
I enjoy being in the field on occasion, but I prefer being a lab rat. I'm more of a lab rat than a field mouse.
Yeah. You got to know your strengths, and it doesn't mean you can't pursue the field. You just have to know that about yourself and put
Yeah.
yourself in the right direction. I would also encourage students on the abfa.org website. There is a tab for students and schools, and it lists all sorts of graduate programs, both terminal masters, continuing masters, and PhD programs that are hosted with diplomate faculty on staff there. So it'd be great to ensure that you're learning from board certified diplomates when possible. And you can also reach out and learn from board certified diplomates in other avenues too, through field schools, even reaching out and looking for shadowing opportunities. It just helps to ensure that you're going in the right direction and you feel confident with the trajectory that you're putting yourself on.
And the ones I've met are not all that scary. There's a couple that are
No.
scary, but most of them are not scary.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say too, another thing, I know you've mentioned on the podcast before, but is attending professional meetings. When I was
Yes.
applying to graduate school, I was encouraged not only to attend professional meetings, but to, while there, not only talk to, faculty of programs that I was interested in, but also talk to graduate students, because you'll really get a good sense of what program is a good fit for you personally and your behavior and your personality. Um, and I just took my little butt to my first AFS meeting by myself, no affiliation, super scary. But I found that, as you mentioned, everyone was just lovely. They were so gracious, they were so kind. I was nobody in no program out of nothing. I had graduated with the undergraduate degree and a master's in archaeology and was changing my focus to this forensic avenue. And people were just so wonderful, gave great tips, real truthful, real raw, didn't hold back, which is often good. And graduate students the same. They'll give you the real deal on their program, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's always a good thing to do is to meet up with the grad students because the grad students are always willing to spill the dirt.
Absolutely.
We always love spilling the dirt. And we're always around. You can tell who's who because they're the ones that actually dress nice.
Very true.
except for me.
That's not true. I've seen you at meetings.
Yeah, I occasionally dress nice. When I have to stand up there, I dress nice. But other than that, I just jeans and a nice top. That's it.
That works.
So, well, that actually is all the questions I have. It actually went much quicker with unfortunately Jenna and Stephanie being ill. Hopefully, they'll be much better tomorrow. Um, I will check in on them in the morning to see how they're doing. But in the meantime, I want to thank you, Erin, for joining us. For those that want to reach out, where can they go? The website is theabfa.org, correct?
Yep, that is correct. On there, you can find all sorts of information about the ABFA as an organization, but you can also, if you're interested in going into this field in this direction, you can find copies of our current application material to kind of see what you would need to apply for analyst or diplomate board certification. You can find that document list of the competencies to kind of see what kind of educational background you would need to move in this direction. Like I mentioned, there's information about schools, graduate programs, master's programs, PhD programs, field schools to direct you to, all sorts of resources to help push you in the right direction along this track if that is of your interest,
I
as well
highly
as
recommend if y'all are interested looking at that site. It's been very useful for me.
absolutely. You can also see a list of all the diplomates that are currently active as well as where they're geographically located. So you'd be able to see if there's a diplomate near you that you could reach out to for a shadowing opportunity, even just to talk to. I've had a lot of students just reach out to me, even just for a one-time Zoom to talk about what the field looks like and to give some direction. And sometimes it's sort of nice to talk to somebody that's maybe in the shoes that you're looking to move toward to see, because no one's in this field, no one's trajectory is straight. Everyone's trajectory is always sort of convoluted and twisty and turny. And so it's sometimes, I think, nice to hear that. People don't really talk about, people always talk, you see them at the end of their, or maybe at the peak of their career trajectory, but you don't often hear about the things that didn't go right on their path. And I think it's really important with students. I did this all the time. Like I started off with saying I'm a pre-med dropout. But it's important to talk about things that didn't go right in your academic and professional career, as well as things that went right, because no one's path is easy, no one's path is straight.
I started as an English lit major.
I mean, come on, there you go. And look where you are now. But absolutely, I mean, so it's sometimes nice to hear, to see what path people took to get to where they are, is really important, and I think often very comforting for students to know that there is no one way you've got to do it. Whatever way works for you in your place and your time is the right way for you.
And there's no right age. You can you
Nope,
you don't have to start when you're 18 years old.
absolutely. I mean, I know many people that are current diplomates that, took a either circuitous route or had a slightly tangential or different career and then moved in this direction later on and are just as equally successful and happy as an individual as anybody else.
Well, it's been great having you, Dr. Waxenbaum,
And,
and it's been a real pleasure. I will see you later at some point. I know that.
and thank you so much for having me. Really
Thank
appreciate the opportunity to talk about this stuff.
and thank you. It's been a pleasure learning more about the ABFA, and it's been a pleasure being able to talk to you. So
Thank you.
have a very wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your time off.
Thank you. Will do.
Will do. Good night, everyone, and we will see you all in a couple weeks.